sit here?
I will invite you to come.
Oh, okay. The minister's later. You know that?
Later to
No, you
doing
just
the closing remarks.
you just open.
I just
You
open
then
and
ask
call
us to
you.
come up.
Yes.
Hello. Hello, everyone. So,
I'm Ana Carolina.
I see it. I see it. I recognize your voice.
Well, you need a translation because we have a lady from Lebanon speaking in Portuguese.
Okay, good. Is it already working?
Yes.
tem que mudar de inglês para português?
Não, eu separei.
Você separou? Ah, então tá, porque ela não fala inglês.
Não dela
Tá bom. Okay. I will call in a minute.
Okay, sit here.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you all for coming here today and join us in this very relevant panel. We are going to start this moment of interesting and important conversation about the value of forests. This event, organized by WWF Netherlands, will discuss and explore the dynamic relationship between Brazil and Netherlands in the intersection between forest conservation and agricultural production. We will be here focusing on the Amazon and the Cerrado biomes, the two largest biomes that we have in Brazil, and how we can improve our cooperation to protect our forests and our biodiversity. And in this panel, we will have 4 panelists that will talk with her. We will have this conversation. And I would like to call and invite you to join us in this for we start. So I would like to invite first Alzerina Makushi. Por favor, você pode sentar aqui com a gente? Pode ser. Alzerina is a coordinator in the Coordination of Indigenous Organizations of the Brazilian Amazon, COIAB. I also would like to invite Ambassador Aldrich Gierveld, Netherlands ambassador to Brazil. Welcome. Mr. Garo Batimanian, General Director of the Brazilian Forest Service. Please join us. And also, Jelle de Jong, Director of WWF Netherlands. So we are going to start with Alzerina. Alzerina, you are here bringing the indigenous people's voice to this discussion. So I would like to hear from you, how can indigenous knowledge and governance systems be better integrated in conservation and agricultural planning?
Bom, primeiramente, bom dia a todas e todas. Eu gostaria de agradecer pelo espaço aberto para a coordenação das organizações indígenas da Amazônia Brasileira, a COIAB, e dizer que nos nossos modos tradicionais de vida, enquanto povos indígenas na Amazônia Legal e também no Brasil, nós continuamos exercendo uma vida tranquila quando nos é possibilitado. E, a partir daí, com a agricultura de subsistência, pescado também de subsistência, dentre outras questões que respeitam a natureza, desse convívio conciliável entre ser humano, natureza e seres vivos como um todo do bioma, desse grande bioma que ainda temos em preservado, justo que existem ainda povos indígenas em isolamento voluntário, povos indígenas isolados, e também de recente contato. Devido à existência nossa nessas comunidades, nas terras indígenas, e aí entram as problemáticas de serem demarcados ou não. Acredito que vocês acompanharam ontem a homologação de 4 terras indígenas, o que é muito importante para nós, porque é o que nós, como movimento indígena, dentro dessa organização legítima indígena, estamos lutando há muito tempo. A COIAB tem esse tempo de existência para mais de 38 anos, e a nossa pauta prioritária, dentre outros eixos, é a demarcação de terras indígenas, considerando o nosso modo, o nosso jeito de viver, do respeito que concilia a natureza, ser humano e todo o restante que existe nessa grande biosfera que nós precisamos estar nela juntos, convivendo, seja indígena, seja não indígena.
Obrigada. So it's very important, muito importante ouvir vocês e ter a perspectiva dos povos indígenas, para que a gente possa fazer essa discussão considerando realmente os modos de vida dos povos indígenas. Então é muito importante, agradeço novamente a sua presença aqui, porque essa parceria entre Brasil e Holanda, ela é extremamente importante, né? A Holanda é um país que tem apoiado muito nas ações de conservação. E aí so I will switch English again, and I will turn to Ambassador Aldrich. So, what policies instruments are currently in place to support deforestation and conversion-free supply chains between Brazil and Netherlands that you can highlight and share with us today?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here in this panel, and thank you also for your first intervention. The Netherlands is a small country with a lot of knowledge, with a lot of international companies and know-how, and a very active diplomatic service. And we are doing our utmost also to work in a bilateral relationship with Brazil on these very important issues. Because after all, these are global themes, global, very important themes that affect us all. We're talking about the climate, talking about conservation of biodiversity, and these are things that are very close to our heart. Let me say something about the perspective as well. I was born in 1963. I'm a very old man already. At the time when I was born, there were 3 billion people on this planet. Nowadays we are with 8 billion people, and probably we're going to peak at around 10 billion people if the predictions are right. This means that the planet is being used by far more people. We need far more food, we use far more energy, and that's why there are so many infringements and so many attacks also on our natural surroundings, on natural grounds that were not used in the previous days. So if we are serious about keeping the temperature on this planet at 1.5, if we are serious about conservation of biodiversity, we have to work together. We have to use instruments. We need the good regulations, and we're trying to do that also at an EU level, setting the standards right. And also, last but not least, is getting the prices right. If we do not value also in monetary terms what something is worth, we are not able in this day and age to be sure that we fulfill our obligations. So what we do, very concrete aspects of cooperation, is bilateral talks, working groups, subsidies, doing scientific cooperation together. And on the Cerrado Day, end of August, I planted a tree in the garden of our embassy. And we also announced that through the Netherlands Scientific Cooperation Board, 3 million euros is being granted for common research on sustainable agriculture and nature conservation in the Cerrado. These are just small examples of what we do and how we want to foster our bilateral ties in view of these big global issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and it's a very good to know that you are investing in research also in the Cerrado, because it's our second largest biome. We have already lost 50% of it, and despite deforestation has been decreasing, we still need to know and to value a lot these very important biomes, where several watersheds are born in Brazil. It's very relevant also in terms of biodiversity and for the livelihoods of traditional local communities and indigenous peoples. So let's now turn to, in Brazil, to Mr. Batmanian. I'd like to ask you, in your perspective, how can bilateral cooperation be strengthened to align forest protection with agricultural trade?
Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here in another WWF event. Your sign over there says intersection between Amazon and Cerrado, and I'll talk another intersection. Is the intersection between land use rights and resource use rights. So indigenous people should have their lands. So this is land use right, land rights. It's not negotiable. As she was saying, if indigenous people live there, either isolated or not, is their choice. The land has to be theirs, indigenous people. Same thing goes with quilombolas. People don't think about it, but there are a lot of quilombola land in the Amazon and in the Cerrado. You know, even near Brasilia, there are several. So they need to get the land rights. So the first thing is the people that live in the forest or live in the Cerrado should have their land rights recognized. Indigenous people, quilombola, rubber tappers, extractivists. Okay. Now, there are places where it's very important for conservation. Maybe you don't have a lot of people there, but important for conservation, and those have to be protected as well. Of course, that's never going to account for a lot of area. I know we have ARPA, you know, all these things, but it's not going to be 100%. So now it goes to resource rights, resource management. And that is on the private land and also in the public land. Those have been unfortunate to hear me bother you with my speeches. I always start with standing forest has value. And I keep saying 3 times because that's a mantra for me. Standing forest has value. So we need to look at the resources out there and manage the resources properly. And now in the Amazon, people know about a little bit. It's too much emphasis on the timber, but we are making timber through concessions and other ways, something that is generating revenue. But now we have this boom on bioeconomy, which I hope we pass on to Açaí. I keep saying that if you ask me, and if you ask her, certainly we have named, we could name products that we consume in the Amazon from A to Z. Somehow we're stuck on A, but you know, you have beef from Bacuri, beef from Babaçu, beef from Buriti, and those things we never see from Cupuaçu, Cacau, they are not there. So we should expand it. But I think it's even worse in the Cerrado. We do have products in the Cerrado that can and should be managed and add value. Because if we add value to the forest would not be converted because you're making money out of it. The standing forest, this is what I bring back the land use right. Because if the forest has no value whatsoever and is not protected, the option will be to remove the forest and use the land for something else. So if you don't want the forest to be removed for something else, you have to make that forest valuable. And in many cases, we already consume. It's interesting that Peru has a big line of products out of Buriti, and they call it aguajales, and we don't. Maybe we should do that. Baru is now entering the market in Cerrado. We can and we should develop more on the species of Cerrado. Don't get caught up on the fact that they don't have a lot of timber, because timber is not the only resource you can get out of the forest. I think that is we have to overcome that logic that the Cerrado doesn't have resources just because the trees are not straightened up just to make lumber. There is a lot more in the forest than the lumber. So that's what the Forest Service does in the public land, but we also try to develop with you guys the market for these other products. Not to overexploit it, but enough to value the standing forest so that once the standing forest has value, it will continue to be a forest, either in Cerrado or in the Amazon.
Thank you. So now, Liel, can you talk us about a little bit about how conservation efforts can be scaled without compromising local livelihoods, considering WWF perspective on working with inclusive conservation, also connecting forest protection and agricultural production?
Yes, thank you very much, Ana Carolina. And good to see all of you. I think quite a few experts also in the audience. So thanks for coming to this session. We are still expecting our minister. So the EU talks were a bit longer, so she will hopefully drop in during this session and also share some thoughts with us. And it's great to be here. Thank you for your introduction. I am the executive director of the WWF Netherlands office. And Netherlands has, I think, a specific responsibility towards Brazil to support the people in the forests, the Amazon, the Cerrado. I myself, I am a son of farmers. My parents, my grandparents, they lived simple lives. But in the Netherlands, in the past 50 years, we saw an enormous growth, mainly in intensive agriculture. And we have the most productive cows in the world. And we are the second largest agriculture exporter in the world. Partly because we have this fantastic feed for our cattle. And this feed is coming, as we all know, from the soy is coming from Brazil, coming from the Cerrado, for example. The Rotterdam harbor is one of the biggest importers of soy in Europe. And we are nature conservation. So we admire these beautiful forests, the people that live in it, that take care of it. But we also understand the water cycle. So I was told that the Cerrado is called the mother of waters because it is a highland. It collects all the water that then goes to the Pantanal and to Paraguay, and it collects the water that flows back to the Amazon. So the Cerrado is a critical landscape in terms of biodiversity for people, but also in terms of its role. And it is under threat. The Cerrado and the Amazon are under threat because we are losing small bites out of these wonderful landscapes on agriculture, which is, can be devastating. And we can, as we all know, achieve a tipping point where the water pump system will not be functioning anymore. And in the long run, agriculture will be very difficult. So together, we have to design solutions like Finance for Forests, the TFFF that you have been masterminding, one of the fathers of it. Thank you very much. We have to develop ways to grow soy and other products and cattle without destroying the Cerrado and the Amazon. So the whole notion of deforestation and conversion-free products is essential and should become the new normal. It should be normal that we buy these products and do not do damage to the landscapes, so that in the longer run, the best guardians of the forest, the indigenous people, the diversity of these people who take care of this biodiversity and have been living with it for millennia, and we can learn so much of them, that we can safeguard their ways of life, but also our own future.
Thank you, Yen. So now I would like to open to a round of questions from the audience, so we can have this great conversation with our invitees. Is there any question? You have a timid audience.
Okay, well, I feel like one of the panel now. Patrick Brown from an NGO called Equal Right. We work globally to advance unconditional cash transfers for conservation. And my question was primarily to Garo as one of the architects of the TFFF. How are you working to ensure that not just the 20% that's been earmarked for IP and LC communities, but also the other 80% that's going towards government budgets is effectively used to direct as much money as possible to the grassroots directly, as unconditionally as possible to IP and LCs?
Do you have other questions? So we can make like a group of 2 or 3? No. So I think we can start answering.
Okay, the 20% is a minimum that each country has to allocate. So if Brazil, along with the civil society, decides should be 30, 40, 50, 60, 100, is up to Brazil. We are talking about eventually 70 countries that will be able to participate. You know, there is an eligibility criteria to get in. The eligibility criteria is the countries are already performing well to the point that the forestation rate is below the world average and is downwards. So you're not paying, we wouldn't be paying for countries that are not doing good job. Good job being understood as below the forestation rate. The 20% is the minimum that each country has to do, so different countries have to decide, and we hope that they decide different ones. The 20%, there is a reason for it. That's what is recommended in the CBD, and is also what Guyana was able to get on their deal. So we took the 20% as a number that was easier to negotiate with all the other countries to accept. That's the bottom. The funds, because there is a liability criteria, if the funds are not used correctly and deforestation increases next year, the country is not going to get any money. So there is an incentive to perform, because if you don't perform, you don't get the money next year. The second part of it is that the part of the program, we have to say, for instance, in my view, has to be additional to the existing budget. So let's take the case of Brazil. Let's say it's 20%, I hope it's more. 20% goes to the indigenous people and local communities for use of funds. That's not a lot, that's not cheap change here in Brazil. That's a lot of money. But there are roles that they cannot do. Demarcation, homologation, she was just talking about it, that still continues to be a role by the government. So when we start saying what the government is going to do, is it trickling down, is not trickling down, you start getting into a gray area. If the government demarcates the indigenous land, I would say it's a very important thing. If it's do the homologation of, it's a very important thing. Did it trickle down to the pocket of the indigenous person? Not necessarily, but it gave them the right to start working on other things. It secured the right and decreased the threat. So the TFFF says that the money should go for existing programs that support forest conservation and sustainable use. For instance, demarcation on indigenous land, demarcation extractive reserves, supporting extractive reserves communities, supporting indigenous land. Those are existing programs that should continue, and the government should put more money into it. That's in addition to the funds that the indigenous people in the local communities will decide to use directly. It's their decision, the money doesn't go through the government. And so, because there are roles that the government still has to have.
Well, just to add that we are very much involved in getting the conditions right, because it will be essential in order to really trigger all the money that is needed for this fund, and to be effective also as what they call the money machine to disperse the money, that we get these conditions right. And that's the reason why the Netherlands has announced here by our Prime Minister, Mr. Dick Schoof, 10 days ago when the high-level meeting took place. He announced that the Netherlands is investing 5 million to get really this fund established in such a way. When that is done, I'm sure that many investors, also institutional investors, will come in and make sure that indeed the forest gets a value. And I've completely concur with Garo just said. We have to repeat that sentence many, many times. The forest has a value and we have to put a price on it. And we hope that indeed the $4 per hectare will indeed be a reality, and that we can therefore also fund the lives and the communities of the indigenous people. Thank you. I'm very happy to see my minister, by the way.
Yes, so I'd like to announce the presence of Minister Sophie Hermans, Ministry of Climate Policy and Green Growth in Netherlands. Thank you for coming. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and sorry I'm a bit late.
So we would like to hear from you some words about this partnership between Brazil and Netherlands in this process of forest conservation and agricultural production. If you can share with us.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for inviting me here and to give me the possibility to say some words about how we work together, the Netherlands and Brazil, on this very important topic. Because I think that forests are among the world's most valuable assets. They regulate our climate, sustain biodiversity, and provide food, water, and livelihoods for billions of people. And that's why it's a great honor to welcome you all. Oh, well, that was I supposed to say, but you are already started. So I'm very honored to enter this session in the middle of the session, the value of forest. And to simply borrow your phrase, more nature means less climate change. And yet, at this very moment, forests are under increasing pressure. The challenge before us is clear: how to meet growing global food demand while safeguarding the ecosystems that make life and agriculture itself possible. A few places illustrate this balance more vividly than Brazil's Amazon and Cerrado, two of the most biodiverse regions on Earth. Safeguarding these landscapes is not only vital for Brazil, but for the world. And this comes both with responsibility and opportunity. And that's why the Netherlands is so proud to work alongside Brazil. We together combine our strengths in sustainable agriculture, innovation, and climate finance. And we show the world that forest protection and agricultural productivity can go hand in hand. And to prove that, we organize meetings together. We had a pre-COP session last week, and as our ambassador already mentioned, the Netherlands reserved some money to help and to start or to intensify, you can say, our collaboration. And we also promised to keep on investing in research, because I think that research is really, really important, that we know what we are doing, that we know how we can work on this sustainable future. And we have in the Netherlands pretty good research facilities. You might know the WUR, the Wageningen University. So I think it's in this collaboration together with Brazil we really can take steps forward. Yeah, so you were in the middle of a discussion. So let me finish by this. And and let me say that I think that working together is the only way in which we can protect our forests and make sure that that we use them in a proper and sustainable way. And by working together, we can prove that trade can be deforestation free, that growth can be inclusive, and that prosperity can truly be sustainable. So thank you.
Thank you very much. You want to say some words? Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much, Minister Hermans. My name is Gerard de Jong. I'm the Executive Director of the Dutch office. We are very pleased that you are here. I'm also curious if there's any questions to the Minister.
I have a mic. I'm good to hear. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. It's all very, sorry, my name is Per Zyriax. I'm head of the forest program for WWF Germany. I'm pleased to hear all the very interesting information and of the Netherlands' engagement in South America and especially the Amazon region. Let's see what the TFFF brings about. I know it is in discussion also in the Netherlands, so we're very curious to hear. I have another hint for you and another possibility for you to engage for the standing forests in South America. It is called the EU Deforestation Regulation. It is under discussion in Europe and in Brussels right now, even today at the COREPER meeting. Sadly, my country, Germany, doesn't play a very innovative role in the EUDR. I'm a bit ashamed of that. But maybe you see the possibility that Netherlands plays a more progressive role in bringing the EUDR forward to really do something for deforestation-free supply chains. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's really good that we're having this discussion, and it's even more important that we bring this discussion to a good end, of course. And I think we have the discussion about the regulation, and at the same time, what we did here, what the Netherlands did here in Brazil, together with Brazil, we did, you might call it pilots, to see, for example, on soy, to see how or to prepare Brazil for compliance with the EU regulation. So I think next to the discussion that we are having in the European Union, which is, I repeat that, of course, very important, at the same time, we have to see how it works out in practice, in reality. And that's what we did here, the Netherlands here, together with Brazil.
Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you. We'd like to thank you a lot for coming, for taking the time, and for the partnership and support to the TFFF and other forest conservation initiatives in Brazil. I have heard that you are very busy, and we all know that you have a very busy schedule, and we have to let you go.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
However, we will not let you go without giving you a panda. So very much thank you for being our host in the panda lobby today. So this is our little cute symbol, as you know. And please take this also as a token of our thanks for you being here, and also as a token of our thanks for the Dutch government helping to also establish this important fund for the forests and taking a first step. Yeah, much appreciated. Yeah. Tot ziens.
So,
Hartstikke bedankt. Fijn dat je het mooie wilde nemen. En succes met alle gesprekken.
Dankjewel.
I'm the head of the Brazilian Southern Forest Service and also coordinate the TFF. Thank you for the support for the
Okay. So we'll continue the panel just in a minute. So I will invite the panelists to come back to take your seats. We are going to have a last round of questions. And I think now we can look at the future. So we have been talking about the importance of these initiatives, the TFFF, TFFF, the importance of these mechanisms, these financial mechanisms for Brazil. So let's think about the future, and I would like to hear, gostaria de ouvir da Alzerina, como na sua perspectiva e na perspectiva da COIAB, o fundo, né, Florestas Tropicais para Sempre, pode fortalecer a conservação e os modos de vida, a proteção territorial das terras indígenas, numa perspectiva de próximos passos. O que vocês esperam de construção nesse sentido?
Bom, primeiramente dizer que esse nome é muito bonito, Florestas para Sempre, porque ao ver florestas, algumas vezes sobrevoando, ela é muito exuberante, linda, impressionante. E é o que está mantendo ainda todos nós aqui nesse local, nesse planeta Terra. O TFFF, Florestas para Sempre, a gente espera que ele, de fato, ocorra como financiamento direto para nós, povos indígenas. Nós temos no assento o nosso coordenador Toya Manchineri, que está acompanhando os debates, dentre outros representantes indígenas que também estão nessa composição, de assegurar que, de fato, nós possamos ter esse financiamento de repasse sem um filtro pelo governo ou, então, por mediadores tuteladores, para conosco, organização indígena legitimamente constituída. Digo isso porque nós temos alguns planejamentos e ideias, tomando o gancho de que a homologação das terras indígenas, por exemplo, é obrigação dever do governo federal brasileiro, o que hoje na COIAB nós estamos caminhando para que aconteça. Seria a gente, dentro daquelas 5 fases do processo demarcatório, a gente conseguir alcançar a conclusão de pelo menos aquela primeira com o grupo de trabalho que é o GT, que a gente fala pela sigla de GT, e que ele fique, a partir de um estudo multidisciplinar, acredito que alguns já têm conhecimento de como funciona o processo demarcatório no Brasil, onde a gente tem biólogos, antropólogos, uma equipe, de fato, multidisciplinar, que ao final vai entregar um relatório antropológico dizendo a importância, a relação ancestral daquele território para conosco, para os povos indígenas. E, nesse sentido, o que nós estamos observando? Pouco financiamento, desestruturação do órgão que promove essa demarcação administrativa, que é a FUNAI, e que nós, enquanto organização da sociedade civil, do movimento indígena, que é a COIAB, poderíamos estar fazendo a contratação desse primeiro grupo de trabalho, dessa primeira fase, para que ela seja concluída, seria concluir a primeira fase das 5, para então a gente ter pelo menos, quem sabe, algum norte, de repente também continuar impulsionando e de alguma forma fortalecer a FUNAI, ou seja, a partir também de umas conversas que estamos ainda em contato com a nossa presidenta da FUNAI, que hoje é indígena, e também com a sua equipe técnica, nós queremos alcançar um acordo de cooperação técnica, onde a própria FUNAI reconheça e que não dê nenhum problema também no avançar das demais fases demarcatórias. Quer dizer que o movimento indígena vai demarcar a terra indígena, vai tomar o papel do governo? Não. Mas vendo que isso não está sendo feito e que nós, com nossa obrigação de cobrar, também não está avançando devido a várias questões orçamentárias e que o governo federal, por vezes, não olha para essa pauta hoje, considerando que o nosso presidente ele está em prol das nossas pautas do movimento indígena, mas o Congresso Nacional como um todo ele tem poder inclusive, de promulgar leis genocidas, leis que promovem ainda mais desmatamento e até mesmo mineração e garimpagem em terras indígenas. Então, vendo todo esse cenário, a gente tenta trabalhar de alguma forma que nós possamos estar observando resultados concretos. Então, nós tivemos essa seguinte lógica: se pelo menos essa primeira fase tivesse sido concluída pela COIAB, mais à frente nós podemos continuar pensando como está contribuindo no lugar do governo, sim, porque é o que nós estamos percebendo que nós temos que fazer, considerando hoje uma organização indígena grande e forte. Para além disso, também da gente alcançar esse momento de fechar esse acordo de cooperação técnica e então fazer essas contratações para algumas terras indígenas, é claro que a gente não vai conseguir fazer com todas, mas também está avançando com relação à parte da segurança alimentar, onde temos terras indígenas na Amazônia brasileira muito ricas, com relação ao alimento, onde não falta, temos abundância e fartura do pescado, do que ali existe na floresta, de caças também. Só que, ao mesmo tempo, temos locais, como a terra indígena Yanomami, com 9 milhões e 600 hectares, a primeira maior terra indígena do Brasil, homologada, onde temos pontos onde a insegurança alimentar ela ainda existe, infelizmente. E isso foi percebido com aquelas fotos onde foi decretada a calamidade de saúde pública agora com a Covid-19 a nível mundial. Acredito que alguns devem ter acompanhado, quem se tem como especialista e há muito tempo trabalha com a pauta indígena no mundo e no Brasil. Nós vimos aquelas imagens, infelizmente, onde tinham muitas doenças de malária, de Covid-19, de um governo que nada fazia, de um presidente que fomentava ódio contra nós povos indígenas e também da desnutrição de crianças, de jovens e de adultos, devido a toda aquela situação que estava tendo do garimpo ilegal dentro da terra indígena. E pensando nisso, em avançar com a pauta da segurança alimentar, hoje nós temos o manejo de pirarucu, para quem conhece ali na terra indígena Vale do Javari existe, manejo de açaí, manejo de quelônios, manejo de outros peixes que não só o pirarucu. E se a gente observar as duas maiores terras indígenas, agora nessa parte de terras indígenas homologadas, em comparativo à primeira maior terra indígena do Brasil e à segunda maior terra indígena do Brasil, nós temos 2 territórios com florestas intactas, alguns pontos de garimpo, infelizmente, e a gente ainda luta para que isso não exista mais. Só que, como ver uma terra tão grande, tão rica, e povos originários passando fome? É muito contraditório ver tudo isso, enquanto em outros locais que exportam toda a riqueza que nós temos, importam, as pessoas estão vivendo muito bem e confortavelmente nos seus lugares. Nós, como movimento indígena, como COIAB, nós pensamos, já que dentro do Vale do Javari, por exemplo, existe manejo de tudo, o manejo ele é esse momento respeitoso, do momento de produção daquele peixe, onde ele vai se reproduzir, você não vai pescá-lo. Você vai proteger para não existir a pesca predatória, o turismo predatório. Então, você tem uma proibição de pesca em determinados momentos. Você tem um respeito para a natureza. Uma mulher, um ser humano, por exemplo, ela não consegue engravidar sem se desgastar quando está no puerpério. Então, pensando nessa dinâmica também que nós não conseguimos atingir um limite de cansaço físico, os animais dos quais, até mesmo peixes e até mesmo os seres vivos como um todo, eles precisam do seu tempo para se reproduzir, eles precisam de respeito. E o manejo ele é isso, ele respeita o tempo dos seres vivos, das plantas, dos animais, daqueles com os quais a gente se alimenta. E nós pensamos, por que não 2 terras tão grandes e tão ricas fazer um intercâmbio, fazer essa relação de troca, de um conhecer o território do outro, num projeto piloto que estamos construindo para acontecer logo após agora a COP30. E aí entendendo como que existe fartura, muita fartura de alimento em abundância. Você não precisa levar a alimentação, comprar fardos de arroz, carne bovina para dentro da terra indígena Vale do Javari, por exemplo. Mas a depender da região que você vai para a terra indígena Yanomami, você precisa levar bastante alimento, desses alimentos que a gente vê sendo gerado pelos grandes latifundiários no Brasil, que desmatam quando a gente chega lá no Centro-Oeste, na região de Cerrado, no município de Jataí. Ali é um grande celeiro enorme que destruiu toda a sua natureza, onde a gente vê em alguns pontos matas ciliares, em alguns pontos a gente também vê piqui, que é preservado. E quando a gente já vem para cá, a gente precisa pensar nessa preservação de uma forma respeitosa. E aí a gente pensou nesse momento, só que para fazer esse intercâmbio, para a gente conseguir concretizar intercâmbios e manejo em todas as terras indígenas da Amazônia Legal, nós continuamos procurando recursos para estar, enquanto equipe técnica, equipe política, parte política, advogados indígenas, dentre outros, de monitoramento, que podem estar auxiliando. E todos esses profissionais são indígenas. Eu mesma sou advogada indígena da organização. E acho que é isso que a gente hoje temos de concreto para apresentar para vocês, dentre outros eixos de atuação da COIAB.
Obrigada, Alzenira. A Alzenira traz pontos muito importantes para a discussão. Primeiro, em relação às fases de demarcação das terras indígenas. Esse é um ponto que se conecta muito, inclusive, com a legislação anti-desmatamento da União Europeia. Então, essas fases elas precisam ser reconhecidas, esses territórios precisam ser reconhecidos, mesmo nas suas fases iniciais. E essa é uma discussão que tem sido, que é muito importante, que precisa avançar. E isso também em termos de reconhecimento para as políticas públicas no Brasil. Né? Além disso, ela traz a questão da segurança alimentar, né? Do manejo dos recursos naturais, a importância, né? As terras indígenas, os sabores indígenas, eles devem ser valorizados e os povos indígenas, no seu intercâmbio, se fortalecem. Não precisa que a gente fique de fora influenciando, a gente precisa dar condições para que essas trocas aconteçam e que as soluções venham do local, dos próprios povos indígenas. Então, esse quando a gente fala de um mecanismo financeiro grande como esse é um desafio de como a gente chega no chão. E, então, essas suas contribuições são muito importantes, porque a gente precisa ir pensando esse como que a gente atravessa a burocracia para conseguir permitir com que essas atividades ocorram dessa maneira. I will move them to Ambassador Aldrich. And I want to go back a little bit about the point you were mentioning before. You mentioned that Netherlands are trying to get more support to TFFF from other countries. So I'd like to hear a little bit about your perspectives. What are the perspectives for this short, medium, and long terms in terms of new support or other supports that you perceive that can collaborate to the fund itself and for the agenda?
Well, as a diplomat, you always try to be realistic. But in this sense, I really want to say that I'm positive and optimistic about that we are going to get this right. And I think that Brazil needs to be commended for the enormous effort it has already done to mobilize international support and getting this right. And the Netherlands also is in that group of countries that wants to have a broad coalition to get the fund established. It will be established in Washington under the auspices of the World Bank, and I think that's also gives the fund an extra credibility because we know that when things are being done in Washington in the World Bank, it gets a sort of extra trust and confidence also, not only from governments, but also from private investors. And I think when you talk about the big money that has to go and flow into the fund, it's important that we get these private investors and also institutional investors like pension funds, etc., convinced that this is a trustworthy exercise and that the money is a safe investment. So that's what we're trying to do, to reach out and to get it right. And let me also finish by saying that it's very important to talk about legal aspects, getting the right legislation in place for example, current discussions on the EU DR, the regulation on the deforestation. It's important to get the financial aspect right. But last but not least, and that's why I'm turning to my right again, it's important that we talk about the social aspects in how will it actually be done by people, by companies, by all actors that play a very relevant role. And in that context, of course, indigenous people and the local communities play a pivotal role in sustaining all the efforts that we do also in the legal and the financial front. So it comes together, and that's why we always have to keep an eye also on the broader aspects of these communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, these three pillars needs to work together to be together. That's part of our work. So, Mr. Garo, I'll turn to you. Again, looking at the future, what do you think are the next steps, and how can countries like Netherlands engage further in TFFF?
I'll sound odd here because I didn't come here to talk about TFFF. And I'm glad to hear that people talking about it is the talk of town. But TFFF is not going to replace, is not the fixture for all the problems for everything. It's very important, it brings money, and I'm very happy that Netherlands is supporting creating the Secretariat with $5 million. And I mentioned to the minister, I hope that you can come in with the billions necessary for us to set up the junior capital in order to create the fund. Like Brazil put $1 billion, Indonesia put $1 billion. Eventually, I hope Netherlands will do that too. But TFFF alone is not going to, we still need the NGOs, we still need the COIABs, the world still need those organizations. So I'm very glad that WWF, for instance, is very vocal in supporting TFFF. But the work is not done there. 40 years ago, there was no COIAB. I'm old enough to remember that there was no COIAB 40 years ago. There was no CNES, the Robert Tapper Association, 35 years ago. They had to receive support to be created and later on to be strengthened and becoming completely independent as strong as COIAB is right now. 25 years ago, about 30 years ago, WWF started working to organize the tourism in the National Park of Chapada dos Veadeiros. That it wasn't organized, it wasn't charged, everybody was going there. WWF Brazil, with support from WWF UK, organized this. Now, the entire town depends on tourism, not only Alto Paraíso, but also Cavalcante. All of it is based on tourism because everybody else developed the tourism. So, and that was done with WWF funds. And that's going to still need to do that. It's not only about money, it's bringing technology, it's bringing knowledge. 35 years ago, WWF Brazil worked with the rubber tappers in Chapuri to create the plant to process Brazil nut. As she was saying, as Zorina was saying, they know how to manage the resources. But what WWF did is how to process it, how to dry it, how to package, to make it sanitarily safe to be sold. That's a technology you brought in because it's not a technology they had. It's not how to collect Brazil nuts. It's not how to fish pirarucu. It's how to treat the pirarucu in a way that market can go. Those things are still going to happen on the ground, and they still need the technology. What I think we have to do is be a little bit closer of looking the public sector seeing so that when you do a pilot, you know that pilot will be scaled up because there is the norms, there is the legal framework, and the willing to do that. Sometimes you have to do it just because either you don't do it, you're going to lose it. That's fine, and that's what's very important. But there is this other way too. So yes, TFFF is important. It's bringing monies for government programs, and definitely the 20% should go for at least 20%. I hope it goes more for the indigenous people and local communities to decide how to use the money the best way they see fit without intermediaries, without through NGOs and government. That's what we're putting on paper, and that's why I will fight for. But that's not enough. You are not going to be out of business, guys. We need this. You need this guy. You need to do the thing, but you have to respect what they know. We don't go there and tell them how to manage pirarucu. You shouldn't go there and tell them how to manage the Brazil nut or the baru, but how to add value, how to do the other things that I usually don't do, but can be done in order to add value so that a standing forest has value. It just bring what Minister Marina says, collaborative advantage. Bring your collaborative advantage to what they're already doing and build together. TFFF will come with a lot of money, but it's not going to do work for everybody else, okay? Alone.
Thank you, Garo, for your contributions. I think for widening the discussion, because you're completely right. TFFF will not be the silver, the solution, the only solution. Like, it's going to help, and especially for public policies. But we still have several challenges in developing solutions and listening and working with local communities, indigenous communities, to build this together and to support this scale up. And the support to civil societies, for local communities organizations, both in terms of policy advocacy, but also in terms of developing the economic activities, restoration activities that are also part of an economic chain, is very, very important. And projects that can pilot these initiatives, thinking on how to scale it up, are fundamental. So thank you for bringing this to the table. And then, yeah, I would like to invite you to make a close remarks of our sections, because we are running out of time. And it would be really good to listen from WWF Netherlands, your perspectives for the next steps and all these partnerships for forest conservation and agriculture in this partnership between Netherlands and Brazil.
Yes, thank you, Ana Carolina. And thank you, panelists, for your contributions. And it is clear that changing deforestation and maintaining forests, it is changing the system, the rules, the way corporations act, the support for the indigenous people, the finance system. And we do that against the powers that keep the system. So we can only do that, we can only change the system that we are all in, if we have some personal courage. Everybody in their own role, be it an indigenous people, being it the Dutch ambassador here in Brazil, being it here the initiator of change in the forest landscape, be it WWF Brazil, and be it all in our own roles. So I hope we find the courage to make the changes that are necessary. I would like to thank our fantastic facilitator, Ana Carolina. Also, I'd like to thank my colleague, Maheen. Maybe we can give her a hand, because she did all the preparation and works hard on the negotiations. And thank you for being here. Keep up the good spirit in this circus named COP, because we know what we do it for. We do it for each other, and we do it for our planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you.